Hello, Maple. In maths, for the last couple of weeks, we've been looking at perimeter and area. And for today's lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to recap something that we did on Friday, because I think some of you might benefit from going through it again. And that's having a look at calculating the area of compound shapes. So let me share my screen with you so that we can see what we are having a look at. And to start you off, if you pause and you can have a look at maybe both the fluency and the deepen and stretch, but have a go at working those out. Just remember with the misconceptions, with compound shapes are made up of two or more rectangles. So for us to calculate the area of them, we can split them into those rectangles to help us. Um, I've given you for the fluency two rectangles for you to calculate the area of, just so that we can remind ourselves of that. But for the deepen and stretch, can you write an explanation, which can use diagrams if you'd like to, of how we calculate the area of a compound shape made up of two or more rectangles? Pause the video here, take as long as you need with that, and then when you're ready, just restart it and I will carry on. Okay, so when we are calculating the area of compound shapes, there's a few things that we can do to be successful. We can make sure that we split each shape into its separate rectangles. That way we can use the rules that we know to calculate the area of each rectangle, which is that we multiply the length by the width of the rectangle. Once we've done that, we add the areas of the rectangles together, and that will give us the area of the overall shape. And we'll have a look and see how that can work. Um, so have a think to yourself. We've done this quite a lot now, but what does the word area mean? So pause your videos, have a think to yourself, write it down if you'd like to. What does the area mean? So when we're calculating the area of something, we are working out the space inside a shape. We talked about how perimeter was the distance around a shape. Area is the space that is inside a shape. And the word compound, we see this with compound words as well. Compound means two or more things being put together. So words like rainbow, shoelace, they are two words that have been combined to make one compound word. And compound shapes are exactly the same. They're two shapes that have been combined together to make one. Now here we have got a six-sided shape. We've got a hexagon. Um, So how can we work out the area of that shape? You can see we've got all of the measurements around the side, but there's something that we need to do so that we can work out the area of it. Now we know the rules for calculating the area of rectangles. And if we have a look at this compound shape, we can see that it is made up of two rectangles. And if I go on to the next slide, I've split this shape into its two rectangles. I've got a red rectangle, which is also a square because all four of its sides are equal. And I've got a blue rectangle. That makes it so much easier for me to calculate the area because I can work out the area of the red rectangle and the blue rectangle separately and then add them together. Now, there are some measurements on here that I don't need anymore. That 8 centimeter measurement, I can see that that is of both sides put together. Now, because that's the line where I've split the shape up, I don't need that 8 centimeter measurement. The same with this 6 centimeters. I can see that it's 10 centimeters, the blue rectangle is 10 centimeters wide, 4 centimeters tall. So those are the two measurements that I need. So I don't need the measurements 8 centimeters or 6 centimeters. So when I split my shape into two separate bits, I can get rid of those measurements. Now, when I'm calculating the area of a rectangle, I know that I am doing the height times the width. So for the red rectangle, I'm going to do 4 times 4, which is 16 centimeters squared, because I'm working out the area. I have to say squared at the end of it. For the blue rectangle, I know that 10 times 4, my apologies there, is 40 centimeters squared. So that's how I'm going to work out my areas there. It's really important that we're on top of our times tables for this. If you've got access to a times tables grid at home, that can help. If not, you can use arrays that we've been using in class sometimes. So 4 lots of 4 dots to help you to work that out. Now, once I've done that, I can put them back together again and I can make my compound shape again. I know that the red rectangle was 16 centimeters squared. I know that the blue rectangle was 40 centimeters squared, which means that to work out the overall area of the shape, I have to add those two together. I know that 40 plus 16 is 56 because 4 tens plus 1 10 is 5 tens, and 0 ones plus 6 ones is 6 ones. So 5 tens plus 6 ones is 56. So my area of the compound shape altogether is 56 centimeters squared. So let's have another look at one. So here you've got another hexagon, but it's a compound shape made up of 2 rectangles. Have a pause, see if you can draw a version of this shape somewhere that you've got it. Where could we split this shape? There's 2 correct answers. Have a think about where we could split this shape up. Okay, so let's have a look at the way that I split it up. So I've split it up like this. So I've got my red rectangle and my blue rectangle. You could also have split it here if you wanted. That's absolutely fine. But we're going to work through it like this. Now for my red rectangle, I can see that the height is 6 centimeters and the width is 1 centimeter, which means this 2 centimeters I don't need anymore because that's telling me a part that's not useful for working out the area. For my blue rectangle, 10 centimeters is the width of the whole shape. Now I've split this into 2 rectangles. I can see that the 10 centimeters applies to this plus this. So I don't need that one. So for my blue rectangle, I've got my width is 9 centimeters and my height is 4 centimeters. Have a go by yourselves. Can you work out the area of the red rectangle and of the blue rectangle and then add them together to work out the area of the compound shape? So pause the video, see if you can work that out. Okay, so let's have a look and see how you guys got on. So for the red rectangle, I know that 6 times 1 is 6 centimeters. I also know it's centimeters squared because we're calculating the area. I know that 9 times 4 is 36. So 9 centimeters times 4 centimeters will give me 36 centimeters squared. So the only thing left for me to do is to add those 2 measurements together. So 36 centimeters plus 6 centimeters gives me 42 centimeters squared. So I've done that by splitting it up into its shapes. I find that coloring the rectangles in can make this much, much easier as well. I know that in class on Friday, we were calling them shape A and shape B, but by looking at it as a rectangle, as a red rectangle and as a blue rectangle, you can see it really visually. So when you move on to the activity, it might benefit you to make sure that you're coloring those shapes in, split them up, see what you can do with that. So for the activity, we've got a few different slides here. So what I would ask you to do is ask you to pause on each one so that you can have a go at each question. So we've got some hexagons, which are compound shapes made up of 2 rectangles put together. What you need to do is you need to work out where to divide the shapes so that you've got 2 rectangles where you've got all of the information that you need to work out the area of them, and then work out the area of each rectangle and add them together. Make sure you're looking really carefully. There are only 4 measurements provided to you, so there's only one place that you can draw the line to make the rectangles that you need. So here's question 1 and 2. Here's question 3 and 4. Again, pause it when you're on this slide so that you can work through those questions. Here's question 5 and 6. And then there's a challenge for you that's a bit open-ended. Now, on the next slide, I've got the answers. If you're not sure about any of these other questions, then feel free to look at the answers and try and work your way backwards. What the answers do is they tell you what sums you are using to calculate the area. So that will give you an idea of where to draw the line that splits them into the rectangles. For the challenge, there isn't an answer because there are quite a lot of different answers. So please feel free to send them over to me and I can have a look at them. So there are your answers as well. Use them to check through your work. Use them to work backwards from if you're not sure. But have a real go at this and remember to use those colors if it will help you to see where the split for the rectangles is. Good luck, and any questions, please feel free to email me.